Well, some transfer speculation, which we'll get to in a second, but something that looks like it's pretty much a done deal, Stevie. Our colleagues at ESPN Brazil reporting that a fee has been agreed between Newcastle and Arsenal, 70 million rising to 80 million regarding performance-related bonuses for Bruno Guimarães to move to the Premier League champions. Does this move make sense to you from an Arsenal perspective?
Oh, from Arsenal point of view, absolutely it does. It makes them stronger. It makes them better. If they can get him and 70 million right now for him seems like a great deal. Can't believe I'm saying that. 70 mil, and I'm saying that's a great deal. When you think of the money that's been thrown around for the likes of Anderson, it's kind of hard not to go to the Newcastle end, to be honest with you, Mark.
Of course.
I mean, I just try to figure out, is there a revolution going on there, or is there a collapse going on there? I'm not quite sure. It seems like a collapse. But in terms of Guimarães, I think this is a super signing from Arsenal. The old cliches, at your strongest, sign and make yourself better. And that's exactly what they've done.
Well, I was going to give Rob the question about where it leaves Newcastle, because another transfer speculation we're going to speak about is Lewis Hall to Manchester United. There's going to be anybody left for their opening game against Liverpool? Where does it leave them?
Well, I mean, right now they look to be in an absolute mess. They've lost Anthony Gordon. They've lost, or going to lose, Bruno Guimarães. I think Arsenal are quite confident now of getting that deal over the line. Sandro Tonali's gone to Tottenham. They've lost the manager. I think it's very, very telling that Eddie Howe's not decided to go at the end of last season. He started pre-season and then decided to go. That suggests to me that he felt that there was some kind of plan in place to replace these players and has been told, you're not going to get what you need. And he thought, well, I need to protect my own reputation then, and I'm not going to take charge of you next season. I'm going to look after myself and quit. I would worry for Newcastle because...
Bruno Guimarães to Arsenal. Reports are now claiming that an agreement worth around £85 million is getting closer, with some sources even describing the deal as done. But how much truth is there behind those claims? Why would Newcastle even consider selling their captain? And could Bruno Guimarães become the final piece of Mikel Arteta's title-winning puzzle? Let's break down everything we know. Every social media post seemed to point towards the possibility of Arsenal attempting one of the biggest transfers in football history. But while all of that attention has been fixed on Madrid, another story has quietly been gathering momentum behind the scenes. And today, it is impossible to ignore, because Bruno Guimarães is once again being heavily linked with Arsenal. According to multiple reports circulating online, discussions around the Brazilian midfielder have accelerated dramatically, with some accounts even claiming that a full agreement has already been reached between Arsenal and Newcastle United. Those reports suggest a package worth around £85 million, including performance-related add-ons, alongside a long-term 5-year contract for the Brazilian international. Now, before we go any further, let's separate fact from speculation. At the time of recording, Arsenal have not officially announced the signing, and reliable Tier 1 journalists have not confirmed that the transfer is complete. So this should still be treated as a developing story rather than a completed deal. However, the fact that Bruno Guimarães continues to be mentioned alongside Arsenal tells us something important. The admiration from Arsenal has never disappeared. And if Newcastle's position changes even slightly, the Gunners are expected to be among the first clubs ready to move. Why Bruno Guimarães has always been admired at Arsenal? This isn't a new name. Arsenal have admired Bruno Guimarães for several years. Long before he established himself as one of the Premier League's elite midfielders, long before he became Newcastle United's captain, long before he became one of Brazil's most important international players, Arsenal scouts were already aware of his qualities. Since arriving in England, Bruno has developed into one of the league's complete midfielders. He combines technical quality with relentless energy. He can dictate possession. He can break opposition lines with his passing. He presses aggressively. He wins tackles. He carries the ball through midfield. And perhaps most importantly, he plays with personality. That is exactly the type of midfielder Mikel Arteta loves. Players who want responsibility, players who demand the ball, players who can control the rhythm of a match when the pressure is highest. Bruno ticks every one of those boxes. Why Arsenal's midfield could become unstoppable. One of the biggest talking points surrounding this rumor isn't just Bruno himself. It's who he'd be playing alongside. Imagine a midfield built around has already been reached between Arsenal and Newcastle United. Those reports suggest a package worth around £85 million, including performance-related add-ons, alongside a long-term 5-year contract for the Brazilian international. Now, before we go any further, let's separate fact from speculation. At the time of recording, Arsenal have not officially announced the signing, and reliable Tier 1 journalists have not confirmed that the transfer is complete. So this should still be treated as a developing story rather than a completed deal. However, the fact that Bruno Guimarães continues to be mentioned alongside Arsenal tells us something important. The admiration from Arsenal has never disappeared. And if Newcastle's position changes even slightly, the Gunners are expected to be among the first clubs ready to move. Why Bruno Guimarães has always been admired at Arsenal. This isn't a new name.